SJ. Welcome to Muscogee Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados.
Darren, DeLaune, Jaho Jifkados.
Welcome to our program, Muscogee Radio, Mabo Edgekis. We are privileged today to have in the studio Mr. Lucian Tiger, who is the new Speaker of the National Council. He's agreed to come in and, answer some questions for us today. Thank you, Mr. Tiger. We appreciate you coming in.
Good morning. And thank you for having me.
Later on, we'll have a second guest who's going to be talking about...
It'll be Vincent Bacchus. He's born and raised here in Muscogee, in the Muscogee Creek Nation area. He's going to be talking about his career so far as an amateur boxer and what he wants to get out of it and what he will be getting out of it.
All right, we hope that you will be patient with us. I know myself and possibly Mr. Tiger are dealing with some throat issues here today that going to bug us a little bit, so I may be leaning on Darren a little bit to deliver my questions here.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to make you earn your living here today, Darren. Okay, well, let's get on with it. Mr. Tiger, as I say, we appreciate you making time out of what I know has got to be an incredibly hectic, crazy schedule. First of all, how are things doing? How are we settling down, so to speak, and what's the council look like to you?
Thank you very much. So far, it's going really well. The first week I was speaker was very busy, hectic, chaotic. Everyone was pulling from both ends, and it was definitely a learning experience that first week. You know, if you'd asked me what I thought of it the first week, I'd have been like, what in the world did I get myself into? But since then, it's settled down really well. Everybody is enjoying how things are so transparent with our office as well as, I believe, with the executive branch office. So to answer your question, it's going really well now.
All right. I know the first time around when we wanted to have you on the program, it was pretty quickly after your inauguration. And let me ask you to flash back to that moment when the election on stage took place and you were named as Speaker. What went through your mind?
First thing that went through your mind was I was very nervous because obviously you're in front of 1,500 to 1,800 people and you're expected to stand up and conduct a meeting. And if you've never been in that position before, never conducted a meeting, it's very intimidating.
Did that same feeling was that pretty much similar to the same feeling you had when you won the election for your seat in the National Council? Is that compared to that? I mean, 'cause I know at that time, that was your first time, winning that election, if I'm correct.
No, I would say no, it is not, because again, when you're campaigning, when the election results stuff come in, it's just a small group of people, mainly friends and family. And at the inauguration, again, you had 1,500 to 1,800 people, and you didn't know the majority of those people. So definitely your nerves set in, and you were like I said, you have to conduct a meeting immediately as soon as whomever wins the speaker position. You have to conduct that meeting. So yes, it was definitely more stressful at the inauguration.
I know that the council is still kind of settling in. People are looking at you and high expectations. I think there was among the electorate a sense of reform going on and a changing of the guard, wanting to see some fresh activity and energy coming out. Now, as you've been able to work with your fellow councilors, how do you size up this national council? Is it going to be more active rather, or reactive, depending on the issue, I would assume? But what's it look like to you? Is it going to be more conservative or more liberal?
I think we'll continue on the same path that we had last session, because we really did have a good council last session. Everyone that was on council, spoke highly of each other. We all worked together really well. Were there some issues? Yes, obviously there were issues. You're always going to have issues, and you handle those internally the best you can. But the group that we have now, I believe, is a really good group of representatives. You have 3 new representatives, and Representative Del Beaver, Representative Rufus Scott, and Representative Randall Hicks. And the 2 of those are younger men. Mr. Scott, he's a little bit older, but he's been a light horse for many years. And I just think it's a good group, a good mix. And with Representative Del Beaver, he also has a lot of experience from his father going through the nation as a chief. So it'll be really good. We will work really well together. And also, we're going to strive to do all that we can to keep the citizens informed of what is going on in the nation.
I threw the word reform in there. I think this is kind of an echo of what we saw with the last council and administration. There were some clashes there. There were some cooperative moments. There were some differences on major things, including let's say, the transparency and accountability issues. Do you see any of that still yet to be dealt with?
No, I really don't. And Chief Floyd and I have met on numerous occasions in the last month and a half. And I understand that everybody's not always going to agree, but it's just how you handle the situation. It's been brought to my attention, everything starts out well in the beginning, but as you continue on, you start separating. And I do believe that Chief Floyd and myself, as well as the rest of the council, will continue to have a good relationship with the executive branch, because there's nothing that you can't work through as a group. And we are all elected officials, and our citizens want to see us all get along and work together, and that's what we will definitely strive to do. And I don't think that there will be any obstacles that come forth to us that we cannot work through and get along. Well,
keep part of that question hot there. We're going to come back to you and the new administration. Now, we've seen the new folks coming into office and things, but you're still dealing with some problems or challenges that have always been with us. And let's just start with a big one right there, and that's the budget for 2016. What can our citizens expect to see in the way of changes, additions anywhere, cutbacks, perhaps an elimination of any budgetary items? What can you share there as far as this new budget is concerned?
Well, the 2016 fiscal year budget was approved on last month's January agenda, and the big part that we had with approving the budget was the gaming part wasn't balanced. And we worked on that, and the nation worked on that. The different departments worked on that, on cutting where they could, and the gaming part of the budget was balanced. But the main thing we're seeing is that we're going to have a shortfall in the healthcare department, and we did approve and pass the budget, but we also are aware that we're going to have a shortfall on the healthcare side, but we needed to approve the budget because the departments depend on their funding, and they needed their funding. So there was no sense in holding it back. It's just an issue that we know we're going to have to address sooner than later.
Now, for the benefit of our listeners, is there a total figure that you work with now for that 2016 budget?
The total dollar amount of it was roughly 292 million was the total dollar amount. I didn't bring that. I don't have that exact figure in front of me. That was roughly the total budget for the nation as a whole.
Yeah, 292,000 would be quite a bit.
292 million. Yeah, 292
yeah, but
million.
I was going to say it would be one heck of a shortfall.
Yes, we would be way short there. Yes, sir.
We also heard, of course, from your the previous principal chief, George Tigert, or that administration, that there was a shortfall coming up, and we heard the figure 18 million. Now, is that still something being considered and dealt with, or are there any remedies there, challenges that you have to deal with?
No, not at this time. Again, basically, the main shortfall that we're seeing is going to be in the healthcare, and the main reasons for that shortfall, in my opinion, is going to be the acquisition of the Muscogee Hospital as well as George Nye.
Okay, and those were a couple of things that were trumpeted as major pieces of progressive administration for the tribe, but all of a sudden the dollar amount is kind of thrown a bit of a wet towel over it and having to deal with the reality. So where are we with those two particular subjects?
Those two entities are still, it's something that the executive branch is definitely looking into, and as well as the council. We need to see exactly where we really are dollar wise, and that's one thing that we're just not sure of. We don't have a figure on that, and it's our responsibility as leaders of the nation to do the best we can to make these profitable for the nation, at least get them out of the red. And that's the issue that we have. One of the main obstacles that we have in front of us, that I can see, one of the major hurdles that we have to get over, is getting the Muscogee Hospital as well as George Nye to where they are profitable, or at least break even for the nation.
Right, and there are critically important components of that health care. I think our tribe has depended on Okemah or having to go up to Claremore or something like that in the past, and so to have something here in Muscogee would definitely be a huge step forward there.
Yes, sir.
Now, did the council wait until the new administration was installed to pass this budget? Were you waiting on Chief Floyd to take the office before making that final vote and decision?
No, sir, because BF&J has met a few times in January, still going over the budget and getting the numbers where they actually need to be. And they met early in January, and there were still some numbers that didn't quite work out where they needed to be. So they had another meeting the third week of January, got back with the controller's office and had the numbers, more to where we thought we could work with. And like I say, back to the gaming, that part was balanced on. That's what was the main focal point. It didn't have anything to do with the past or current administration. It was just getting the numbers right and seeing exactly where we were.
Has Chief Floyd reacted at all to the figure that you presented in this final proposal to?
No, sir. We haven't discussed the budget between Chief and myself. We have not discussed the budget. He just kind of he sits in on the meetings and overhears and listens. And anytime there are any questions, he is more than welcome to answer. If the controller's office doesn't give a satisfactory answer, that he can go ahead and add to that for us.
As we go along there, we're going to see probably a continuation of the requests from communities and organizations and even individuals for support from the council. One of the things that I was kind of curious about is how that process happens. What are people thinking when they come to the council for money and support? Is it possible that our own people will start thinking of the tribe as kind of an ATM? I mean, all of those things are kind of in the mix as we look at supplemental requests for funding there. So have you any new policies or any ideas or ways that you'll be addressing these requests?
Yes, there was some legislation that just passed last month, and it pertains to travel for our youth. I believe that age on that is up to 20. It's up to 24, 25. That there was not a cap on that previously, and Representative Barnett introduced legislation on that to where if you were wanting to travel abroad for educational purposes, in the previous years that I was on council, we would just fund up to half of whatever that was. So if it was a $10,000 travel expense, we would expect the citizen to come up with their part, half of their part of the money, and the nation would fund the rest. And now there's a cap on that. And if it's within the United States for travel, it's $1,000 cap. And if it's the out of the nation, if it's intercontinental travel, it's $2,000 cap. So that will help benefit that as well.
And other communities, you request sort of like help with an air conditioner. Someone needs a piece of machinery, a tractor, something to keep up their grounds or their church, or things like this. And I can see where these might have been sort of pet projects from different district representatives. But are there any new expectations or limits or change there that those folks should be aware of?
Well, one of the main things that we did last session as council is we passed the legislation to state, so it was clear to everyone that all the community buildings are property of the nation. Therefore, the nation is responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of these buildings. And that there was a lot of gray area in that in the previous years. So now with that being clearly stated, that takes a lot of burden off of the individual communities to try to come up with the monies to fix and repair whatever needs they may have. So this legislation will help them understand, and we're all on the same page now that yes, these are the properties of the nation, and therefore it is our responsibility to perform the upkeep and the maintenance on these buildings.
Have you had any feedback on any of these subjects yet? People coming in, calling you up to gripe or pat you on the back?
No, because a lot of the communities are still not really aware of that legislation, and they still try to take care of some of the things for themselves. And it's all a process. And GSA is responsible for going out and repairing these buildings, whatever the community thinks that they have. They'll send that list to Community Research and Development, and they'll get it on to GSA, and it'll go from there. And it's taking a little bit longer than we would like to see, but these situations are being addressed, the issues are being fixed. It's just taking a little bit longer, so that's something that we're working through because, again, it was new legislation. So,
yeah, well, I think the communities will adjust and make the appropriate requests and that sort of thing.
yes, sir.
Now we are also aware sometimes that a tribal program may come up with a supplemental appropriation request, whether it's for health or some other thing like roads or housing or something like that. When a tribal program comes in asking for more money, how is that going to be dealt with?
Again, that is something that will be addressed through legislation. They'll introduce that legislation, and we'll have a attachment with that legislation that explains to us what the need is, what they're going to do with the monies, how the monies have been spent, where they were short, and it'll have the reasons and explanations of why they need that supplement to their budget.
Now, looking at all of these requests, I guess, all together, then you think the council is going to have perhaps a more critical eye when it comes to people asking for more money?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, that's like, again, the piece of legislation Representative Barnett did. It also, we're trying to stay by what the law states. You can always ask for more. Then it comes into a 2/3 vote for it to pass the full council. And it's hard. There's always exceptions to the rule, but we're doing the best we can as representatives to do what the law allows us to do financially for our citizens in that capacity.
Sure, you've got to work within your limits.
Yes, sir.
The amount that you've got to work with.
And it's not always easy to tell our citizens, this is what the law allows us to do for you as an individual, because there's always exceptions to the rules, but we do the best that we can to try to do what the law states that we can or cannot spend.
Okay. Now, at the end of the last session, we saw an item that required some disciplinary action against one of the members. There was someone had really stepped over the line in regards to conduct with another member, and the council stood up and said, "Nope, you're going to have to face the music," so to speak. Now, that was something I had not seen in the years I had been watching the council. And I'm not saying it hadn't happened or what, that this wasn't going on. It just wasn't. I just wasn't aware of it, and I kind of try and keep my eyes out. Now, that I think a lot of people were applauding the action of the council, saying, "Well, yeah, there's some backbone for you. If there's something going on there that we need to deal with, and by God, then they should be doing it." So, do you think perhaps that we may be seeing any more of that sort of thing, or what's the phrase I'm looking for? You people that are aware now that there are consequences to be paid if there is something that's out of line. I guess that's making a short question long, but I hope you get what I'm after there.
Yes, basically it all goes back to accountability. And if we can't hold ourselves accountable, how do we expect other employees of the nation to be held accountable for their actions? So, and it's not any one representative should be selected out. No, it's just all representatives. If we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, we need to be held accountable for it, and it needs to be brought in front of internal affairs, like this certain issue that came up last year was, and it was dealt with internally. And it just goes to show that, that goes back to transparency. We're not any different as council representatives, elected officials, than our citizens that are employees of the nation. And we're not any different. Everybody has to be held accountable for their actions, whether it's myself or any of the other representatives. And I believe that's what we demonstrated through the actions that were taken during the last session.
I think toe the line is the phrase I was fumbling for there. You think that will be the case now, that this sort of thing will disappear?
Yes, I believe that it was through the process, and it went through the process really well. It was handled like it should have been, and I believe that just set the tone for future representatives to understand, again, that we have to hold ourselves accountable, and I believe that we did a good job of that last session. I believe we will continue to do a good job in it this session that we're in now.
Well, as I say, there were a lot of people who were pretty happy to hear that kind of thing was going on, and I said, more power to you, so more power to you.
Well, thank you.
Now, let's also look at a couple of other things that were happening near the tail end of that of the last of the 2015 legislation. We saw some real intense activity going on between the council and the administration over the forensic audit that had been commissioned. There were problems with auditors being able to get in and get the materials they needed and counter charges, shall we say? I don't know if that's correct, but saying that, what are you spending all this money on an audit for? We already do one. My overall feeling was that was headed in such a great direction, and all of a sudden put out kind of a partial list of answers, so to speak. Where are we with that forensic audit? Is there still some business to finish there?
Not at this time, no, because what it was, we received a copy of the audit in June, and then we released the copy of that audit on our website after we'd appropriated the monies to pay for the audit. Were we pleased with the results of the audit? No, because there were just a lot of accusations and assumptions in there. And with that being said, they couldn't get to particular items that we needed to help conduct the audit. The cooperation wasn't there that we were expecting at that time from the nation itself. So it kind of stalled. Basically, is what happened. It just kind of stalled, and we just, we were dealt with the accusations that were presented to us. There were a lot of things that they found they just did not get concrete documentation on because we didn't have access to the emails of the nation. Basically, is what happened in that.
That was unfortunate. I know it disappointed a lot of citizens to see some of the material that was turned up there, and some hard feelings are still going on out there, I'm sure. What about the council house? As we turn around, we can see this historic building behind us, and we want to kind of get an idea of where its future is going. Now, I know that the council is facing a tough question and trying to balance, the needs for preservation and restoration of this historic building, and then the immediate need for health care and contract care and other things that our citizens are dealing with as human beings. Like, how do you balance them? I guess it's kind of a juggling act. Can you shed some light on where that is right now?
Well, we're well aware of the renovation that needs to be done to the council house. That's around a $3.5 million renovation that needs to be done. And Representative Randolph spoke about this when this legislation came in front of the LNC committee, that he was hesitant to support this at this time, again, because we didn't know where we were going to have a shortfall with the budget, if we were going to need monies, because $3.5 million is a lot of money from the nation at this point in time. And lo and behold, we had a shortfall. We do have a shortfall in health care, which is what Representative Randolph had pointed out. We wanted to be sure and make sure the nation was taken care of, and we had the finances to fund all of our departments. And as of right now, the nation's working to address the funding issues on that, and they're going to apply for some grants because it's something we definitely know it does need restored. We just need to try to find out the best way to finance the restoration.
Speaker Tiger, in the last the session for the January meeting, y'all had a confirmation of partial of the Chief Floyd's partial of it, but not all of it. Is that going to be I guess the remaining members that are going to be confirmed, will that be done like in this month, or will it be done here pretty soon?
No, sir. Chief has not sent over any legislation for confirmation of any of the commissioned employees at this time, and that he can also roll those over again because he has 90 days to decide whether he wants to bring these individuals that he has not brought over. He can bring them over for confirmation. He has 90 days to do that.
90 days, okay.
Yes, sir.
Were there any objections in the discussions of these confirmations? Were there bumps in the road that just said, "Nope, go back and do it again"?
For the ones that were confirmed over
The ones that weren't.
the ones that were not, no, those haven't been brought to us yet.
Okay.
They're still commissioned. Everyone that's been brought over for confirmation at this time has been confirmed.
Okay, great. Oh boy, where do we go from here? We're looking at excuse me. You got something you want to bring up? Please feel
Well,
free.
I mean, I do. I'm sorry. That one of the things that was brought up, or what I heard about a couple weeks ago, was the low water dam in Tulsa. Is that going to be? That goes to vote here pretty soon in Tulsa. Are they still going? Are they still talk to the MCN with the funding of that? I mean, even though since that will be going to vote here pretty quickly.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking that, because yesterday myself as well as a few of the other representatives met with Mayor Bartlett, and that was one of the major discussions, was a low water dam. And we explained to Mayor that River Spirit, the Riverwalk, and Margaritaville, the nation's going to have approximately $520 to $525 million invested on both sides of the river, and what they were looking for is maintenance money.
Mm-hmm.
The maintenance money is going to be anywhere between 15 and 18 million is what they would like to see in that fund. And we just explained to them at this point in time, it's not something that the nation can look to spend money on, because we have to take care of our citizens. We have a lot of projects that are unfinished here, such as the council house. We need the money for that as well. And we just explained to them, it's not on the table at this time to be discussed, because the nation just doesn't have the funds to go and say, we're going to commit 15 to 18 million dollars towards the maintenance of the low water dam. And it was a very good discussion, though. We met for about an hour, discussed several things, and they were very appreciative that we came and met with them, and it went really well. It was a very good discussion. We also explained to them that at a later date, it's not something that we're definitely saying, no, we're absolutely not going to be involved in this, but just at this time, it's not at the best interest of the nation right now. 3 or 4 years down the road, maybe the monies will be different and we can readdress the situation, but it's just something that we don't have on the table at this time for discussion.
I know that Fox 23 News was running a story that a deal had been made, and something was in the works for the tribe coming up with a share for those dams. But that ain't the case.
No, sir, that is not the case. Not at this time.
Okay, great. Now we are looking, let's go back to some grant funds for economic development. The revenue sharing formula is being modified. We understand that there will be caps on requests from communities, and I think I'm seeing the figure of $60,000 annually. And it will be replacing an older formula. There was focus on the community development block grants. Now, I guess just to be quick and focused, then what's happening there? What can the communities expect when it comes to revenue sharing there?
Basically, how this all started was last session. I was on the Hugh committee, and we have former gaming communities that come to the nation for an appropriations, and we weren't able at that time to fund those appropriations to the communities. They would come for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 appropriations, and the nation we couldn't afford that at that time. So we as Hugh committee decided we needed to get together and try to get some kind of legislation in place that would fund all 25 communities, because there are a lot of the communities, roughly 70% of the communities we have at this time have never came to the nation for an appropriation. So what we did, we got together, we had a working session. Speaker Yahola called a working session, and all the representatives attended, and we discussed this in depth, and we came up with the $1.5 million, what we thought the nation could possibly afford at that time. We didn't know if that was a workable number or not, but that's something that we just put together, and we broke it down to where it would be $60,000 per community. And we do understand that there are some communities have more needs and have more members than other communities, and we understand that. We were just trying to start we needed a foundation to start with, and that's what this legislation has done. It's nothing set in concrete. We understand that there, like I said, the former gaming communities have a bigger need because the way they were used to the gaming revenues coming in. So this was just kind of put in place to kind of just give us a foundation to start. And I understand, a lot of the communities are upset because they can't feel that they cannot make it on the 60,000. But that's just a starting number. It's not. We're just trying to get this to where we can eventually get this in the cab to where the communities know every year they don't have to come in front of council to request funding. If it's in the cab, they know every year we're going to get, whether it comes from 60 to 90,000, because some of the smaller communities, they might not need the $60,000. So after a year or so of this being out, if it does pass, it has to pass before anything can be done. But it just gives the communities a figure, and they don't have to be worried about, well, are we going to get our $80, $90, $100,000 this year? That's all we're trying to do as council, is to benefit all the communities and make sure everyone is getting some kind of funding from the nation if they need it. And a lot of communities don't think they will need it, and they'll just need enough to pay their utilities and things such as that. But a lot of the other larger communities do have programs for their youth and for their elders and for the community as a whole.
So in essence, I guess it sort of levels the playing field and gives everyone an equal share.
Yes, sir. That was the intent when we initially looked at this. That's what we were trying to do. So that like I say, because Hugh Committee, we took a lot of heat, because again they see the committee as 5 individuals when it's not one individual that can pass or fail a piece of legislation. It takes a majority, and that's what we want everyone to understand, and that's why we introduced this legislation. And it did pass. It passed through council, but it was vetoed, and then the veto was not overridden. There was 1 or 2 votes shy of being overridden.
All right. Now, as we start running out of time here, I want to toss a final question at you and then give you an opportunity to share something that might be on your mind. Now, we asked Principal Chief Floyd about his leadership style and how he was going to be dealing with people, and I kind of talked about what the changes we've seen around the tribal campus, less flashy, shall we say. And he said the position didn't really change him as a person, and he knew he had a job to do, and there were no trappings that went along with it. So let me ask you that same question. What about your own personal leadership style as speaker? And then after that, you're free to share a thought or two.
As speaker, I have told people, I'm the same person that they saw before the inauguration. That a title shouldn't change anybody. You are who you are, and as long as you are yourself every day, people know what to expect. A title doesn't mean anything to me. I'm still, representative from Tulsa, just like Representative Houghton, just like all the other representatives. We're still all just representatives. I just have a little bit more responsibility with overseeing the office. And it's great that I have been so busy with citizens coming in to see me. They want to voice their concerns. It's a lot of very good communication, I believe. You're able to address a lot with the citizens. You're able to communicate more with the other representatives, because when they have questions, they'll CC me on the email that they send to different departments to kind of keep me in the loop, and that helps me answer questions for the same citizen maybe that's calling me that is also calling another representative. So I believe it's going to be very beneficial. And then, like I say, we talked a little bit earlier about the relationship with Chief Floyd. That's very good. We have an open door with each other. Like last night after L&C, we sat and visited until 8 o'clock in my office, Chief Floyd and a few other representatives. And I will do everything that I can, as well as our council will do everything that we can to continue that kind of relationship. But, the main thing that our citizens can expect of me is obviously the open door, transparency, and I'm definitely dedicated to doing the best I can as Speaker for our nation. And the one thing that I would like for our citizens to really understand is we're legislators, and we are going to do the best we can to make sure our nation continues to go in a positive direction. And they come to us they feel like we're their last resort sometimes. And yes, we will definitely listen to any issues or concerns that they may have. But when it comes to the hiring and firing, that's just something that is out of our control. That's not our job description. We can't get them their job back. We can't get our citizens a home. But they come to us with issues that we can address and we can check into, because again, they see us as their last resort with a lot of issues.
All right. National Council Speaker Lucian Tiger, we want to say Mvto for coming down and speaking with us and being quite candid in your answers. We certainly appreciate that. And as I said with Chief Lloyd, perhaps we can do this on a regular basis and kind of update our citizens.
I want to thank you all very much for having me. I've enjoyed it. This is my very first radio interview, and I hope it went well and hope everyone can understand me and heard me well.
I think so too.
You found out that we don't leave any teeth marks.
Yes, thank you very much for being easy on me this time.
Okay, and guy. All right, well, we're going to take a short pause here, and then I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Darren DeLaune, who's going to be speaking with his guest here in the studio. So please stay with us here on Muscogee Radio.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape. But then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Muscogee Radio. This is Darren DeLaune. I'm going to give Gary Fife a break. If y'all didn't notice during the interview, he was like really scratchy voice and everything. It looked like he was about to lose the voice any time, which is, in a way, kind of a good thing for our listeners. So I'm helping y'all out here. But now we're going to our next guest. His name is Vincent Bacchus, and this man is a great man, a great person, a great Muscogee Creek citizen. How you doing today, Vincent?
It's Jay. Doing good this morning. Vincent Bacchus, Jihijahidos.
Perfect. Well, everybody around here knows Vincent. I'm having a hard time calling him Vincent, so I'm gonna call him what I normally call him, is Bookie. That's just a nickname that I've called him forever. And when we were in our first segment, Bookie was just like waiting in the background. If nobody notices about Bookie, he's an amateur boxer, and it looked like he was just trying to get in the zone for this interview. He was just like sitting there, just waiting patiently until he just finally now it's his time. So, how's everything going with you, Bookie?
It's going pretty good. Got Golden Gloves coming up. I had a fight in Nebraska a couple weeks ago against their Golden Gloves champion, and I came out with a majority decision. Been building myself a team, getting ready for this transition to go pro. Of course, I got you working with me on the mitts, and also Roger Johnson working with me on my strength and conditioning. That's helped me out a lot. I have a certification in strength and conditioning, but it's always good to get another professional's point of view and have someone to help you, because in this boxing game, it's a lonely sport, but you cannot do anything alone. And I've tried it. It worked out okay, but we're trying to make it better.
Exactly. I mean, especially because, when you say the lonely sport, because whenever you're in the ring, whenever you're about to fight, it's just you. It's just you in that ring. You're going against another person. There's just 3 people in the ring total. It's not a basketball game where there's 10 plus the ref, or it's not a football game. It's nothing like that. It's just you by yourself. But, Boogie, before we go into that, could you please just tell a little bit about yourself? Mainly, the first question is, what got you into boxing? Why did you want to get into boxing?
I've always wanted to box. Growing up in Okmulgee, being a young kid, like everybody got into fights. And people talk about a boxing gym that was here in Okmulgee, but I never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
there, as far as boxing, there was nothing for the kids here, especially the native kids, because, you know, I wouldn't say we were left out there, but it's you know, it's hard. We need more community involvement with all the youth now, because I've seen a lot of difference since I've been back. But I've always wanted to box. The first time Creek Nation had a tough man contest, I entered it to see what I had. I did good the first 2 rounds, but I had no idea of how to train for any kind of fight. Even though it's 1 minute rounds, that's a long time being in the ring. And the dude I was fighting, he had amateur fights, and he beat me. But I came back and I actually started training a little bit harder, and I fought in the tough men contest in Okima, and I won 3 fights in 2 days. And from there, that's kind of how the ball kept rolling for me. Went back to school at high school. They have a boxing club up there, very good boxing club, one of the best in Kansas. Some top names come out of there, especially natives.
I'm gonna go a step further and just say one of the top Native American boxing period. I mean, because like you said, you always hear about the top boxers who are Native American. They always come out. You always hear about this is from Haskell. They come from Haskell. So.
Yeah, they got to. Well, I say we because I still consider myself part of the Haskell. That's the only gym I've ever been associated with, really. But yeah, it's a good program up there. If you got any young kids that are graduating, I mean, that's a good place for them to be around other natives, and they're going to learn some boxing, and they can go to school too. But yeah, that's how boxing got started for me.
That's great to hear. You know, now with your amateur career, I mean, it took you to. I know you won the Golden Gloves. I think you won it a few times, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I won the Kansas City Golden Gloves twice, and I won just recently last year. Won the Kansas Oklahoma Golden Gloves.
Which was a great thing, 'cause, I mean, one of the great things about that was, you know, just to hear that, you were able to do that. I mean, you don't hear that around here. So it was like so I want to again congratulate you. I know I congratulated you numerous times, but because of that win, it took you somewhere that a lot of people like dream to go, but just never had the opportunity. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Actually, I think I'm pretty sure I'm the first Golden Gloves champion from Okmulgee. And during last year's tournament, I did represent under Okmulgee because I was living here. And so, yeah, we got a Golden Gloves champion in Okmulgee. And from there, I went to the Olympic trial qualifiers. I mean, I was ready as possible. I mean, that's a big goal of mine, a big dream. And we went out to Colorado Springs, and I fought really good, but it's just such a different atmosphere. It was like almost fighting my very first fight. It was tough because it's a 6,500 feet elevation, and you can train as hard as you want to on a level sea level at 0, but once you get in the mountains, it's a different ball game. But I fought well. I left it in the ring, but I lost a decision. So we went from there, and I was going to turn pro, but you know, a lot of contract people. You know, the professional game is just very tough, and I didn't want to jump into anything too early. So I kind of sat back and checked out all my options, and I decided to go amateur for another couple months to fight in Golden Gloves again, to represent Okmulgee again, and also the Muscogee Creek Nation, because boxing is something that has changed my life. It's helped me develop as a person, be a better person, a better father to my kids, a better husband to my wife, and it's done a lot for me. It's taken me a lot of places, just like sports do, you know, all athletes. But, I mean, being in that ring is something different because, like you said, you're the only person in there. You can't call timeout. You can't call for sub. And if you once you get hit, I mean, you got no choice but to come back with something. You got to come back with something. I mean, that's life. Like, no matter, life is gonna be rough. No matter how you're born,